Hey HSPs, it's Steve. In this episode, we are exploring the question, are all HSPs and empaths demisexual? And I want you to do something for me. I have a poll that I'm doing on this topic, and it's in the show notes of the podcast and the YouTube channel. And if you could go out there and answer those questions, because I'm trying to see what MBTI types are more demisexual than others. It's a non-scientific poll, but you know how we roll around here. Also, there's a few random topics, some book recommendations from people that suggested books. I have a couple books that I'm going to recommend. And yeah, thanks for listening. All right, let's do this. Hey HSPs, welcome back to another episode of the HSP Experience. It's good to be back. It is February 6th, 2020. I think this is the first podcast of the new year that I'm doing. So great. It's already February. I can't believe January's gone. Unbelievable. So I hope everyone's doing well. Our main topic tonight is, are all HSPs and empaths demisexuals? And if you don't know what that term means, I will explain it in a few minutes. But first, I want to comment a little bit on the last podcast about the covert narcissist versus the introverted empath. I got a lot of feedback on that episode. I appreciate it. A lot of people could relate. A lot of people have narcissists in their lives. I got an email from a guy who his brother's a narcissist, and he was asking me about how to deal with it. That was a comment on the YouTube channel. And I just want to throw this out there. If my suggestion is, if you have a narcissist in your life, just go no contact, right? I was unequivocal about that. I still believe strongly about that. No contact is the way to deal with narcissists. You cannot change them. You cannot reason with them. They are irrational and toxic and completely destructive. So I have no love for narcissists, you could tell. However, if you have a narcissist in your life you can't get rid of, maybe it's like an ex-spouse or a parent or a sibling, there's something called the gray rock method, and you can look it up. But basically what gray rock method is you are just basically unemotional when you're dealing with a narcissist. You don't let them trigger you. You stay unemotional. You stick to yes and no questions. You just don't take the bait, because they are always trying to trigger us and hook us and get us to react either positive or negative. So let's just look up gray rock method if you have narcissists in your life. It's pretty effective. Yeah, I recommend it. I don't think I covered it in the last podcast. Also, I wanted to talk about, if you listen to that episode, I got a little triggered with the God talk, and I sort of wanted to talk about the tone. I know it was probably a little angry I'm not angry on this podcast, and I'm sure you could feel the energy. I was going to cut it out, but I left it in. But I got a few emails from people, and they were saying that they were glad that I left it in. There's a lot of empaths and INFPs that are ex-religious people. I was getting an email from an ex-Muslim, lots of ex-Christians, an ex-Catholic, a couple of those. So they were like, hey man, thanks for leaving in the rent. Yeah, a lot of empaths and HSPs have been affected by authoritarian religion. And it's usually the revealed religions, right? The Christianity, the Islam, basically the religions where God told somebody something, and then that somebody tells the rest of us what God told them, right? Which is like a total ridiculous concept. It's funny, there's a book by Thomas Paine called The Age of Reason, and in there he talks about the irrational, how irrational revealed religions are. Because, so think about this, if like God tells me something and then I tell you what God told me to tell you, that's called hearsay. Like in a court of law, that doesn't even stand up, right? Like that's secondhand information. You have no idea what God really told me, but I'm going to sit there and tell you like, I had this revelation from God, and he said, we shouldn't eat shellfish and we should have lots of wives or whatever bullshit, people say God said. It's all to enslave humanity and to control people. The funny thing is, if you look at the leaders of these authoritarian and these revealed religions, they're narcissists. They're the narcissist. the people like me and you and the people that were actually parishioners, most of us were sincere believers. The people that run it though, like the Pope and the Catholic Church, all the leaders in the Catholic Church, they're all narcissists. You look at Joel Osteen, who's a mega church pastor. You've seen his house. The he's a multimillionaire. You know, he's ostentatious. He's your typical grandiose narcissist. Man, pick any of them. Pick any of these church leaders. The people that run the churches, they're the narcissists. Almost all the pastors, the priests, all the people up in the hierarchy of the church, they're narcissists. You know, we're the ones that go and confess our sins to them. They don't confess their sins to us, right? You see how it works? So yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't tell you how many people I've met that were abused in these religions. So yeah, but my rant, I was just working some stuff out. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm cool with people have their personal beliefs, but organized religion where you have another person setting themselves up above you. These people, they're not any better than you. Your pastor, your preacher, your spiritual leader, your rabbi, all they just know more of the legend than you do. They're storytellers, they're myth makers. All they do is they're carrying on the myth, and we look up to them, but all they're doing is selling us folklore. But they're no better than you. You know what I mean? They have sins too. You should see how corrupt these pastors are. I used to be in that world. The pastors, they're sleeping with they're usually the alpha males, right? So what they do is they tell the other guys, like, you need to, not express your sexuality and suppress it and blah, blah, blah. But the guys at the top, they're sleeping with all the women in the church. I remember I was going to this church in LA and the youth pastor got one of the girls pregnant. That was awkward. Yeah, it happens all the time, man. They're all hypocrites. The whole thing is ridiculous. They're all just, we're all just primates. There's nothing special or magical about anybody. In fact, usually the more religious somebody is, the more they're trying to control something that they don't like about themselves, something in their shadow self. Some of the most disconnected people from their true self are religious people, highly religious people. It's pretty sad. When I meet someone that's hyper religious and they I'm like, what the hell happened to you? What are you hiding from? Yeah. You're not going to find any love for religion here. So if you're a religious person, I get it if you unsubscribe, but I was traumatized by my religion, and I know a lot of people that were traumatized by theirs. So I'm an advocate I stand up for people. I stand up against organized religion because I actually think it's doing more harm than good. Now, however, there is one thing about organized religion that I do think is okay, and that's the local community church. Where people get together, a lot of communities, the only place people can get together is the local church for barbecues and stuff. That's cool. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about fellowship. That's cool. I'm talking about when they tell you that if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell, and they exclude gay people and trans people, and looking at porn is a sin or whatever. The thing that creating toxic shame in people's lives. That's what I'm against, and that's most evangelical Christian churches and the Catholic Church. It's the doctrines. The doctrines are garbage, but I love the people. Also, when I'm pretty hard on narcissists, I have no love for them. I think we should all collectively go no contact from all narcissists and just let them be isolated in their dark fucking world. However, I don't hate the inner child that the narcissist is separated from, that's completely suppressed and they're disconnected to. I feel sorry for narcissists, but my empathy ends because once a narcissist reaches the narcissistic personality disorder level, they're lost. In fact, they're evil. They're basically evil people on earth. So there's nothing you can do. I don't really, at that point, I feel sorry for them, but I want to protect myself and others from them. So, but, I do realize that they were injured people. It sucks, but it is what it is. Also, I got a couple emails from women with borderline personality disorder. The one was like, Steve, I have borderline personality disorder and I'm working on it. And I wanted to give a shout out to the BPD women, because the thing about the BPDs is they can sort of control it, and it is amenable to therapy. I personally would probably not risk hooking up with a borderline personality disordered woman. However, borderline personality disorder is from abuse, but they can manage it, and it can be managed through therapy. So it's like they're still in the cluster B in the DSM. They're still in the cluster B category as like narcissists, but I don't know. I feel like the BPD women are less destructive if they can get into therapy. Wasn't trying to be too hard on the BPD women, but I was just trying to warn the guys, like, watch out for those BPD women. And narcissism is a kind of a subcategory of the BPD women. So a lot of BPDs are narcissistic. And as empaths, guys and girls, empath type people, we attract narcissists and borderlines. That's just what we do. So watch out, be careful. It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of research on the empath versus the narcissist, because the thing is, empaths could have gone either way. And there's this dynamic that happens in families where you usually have a narcissistic parent and you have two children, right? Well, one child might try to be the good child, and no matter what they do, no matter how good they try to be, they still get abused and discarded, and they can't figure out how to get their parents' love and affection and acceptance. That child will usually grow up to be a narcissist. Now you take the other child, they're in the same house, but this other child might be highly sensitive. They learn how to sort of play the game the parent wants them to play, maybe be like the golden child, maybe do what they got to do to gain the parents' acceptance. So they start to, and that's how empaths are made a lot of times. So like this was what happened to me in my house. Like I learned intuitively how to like survive and play the game. And by doing so, though, I really honed my intuition and my ability to read people. So that makes me a really good empath as an adult. And I actually was like kind of codependent for a while, because just that dynamic, growing up in that dynamic, made me sort of like a codependent type adult. And that's how, I had some relationships where that dynamic played out. But my point is, if you grow up in the same house, it depends on, which way you go as a child. I think, the child that finally gives up and just becomes a narcissist because no matter what they do, nobody will love them. So they just start looking out for themselves. And a narcissist is just the extreme selfish person, right? They're totally narcissistic, right? But they didn't start out that way. They were abused to the point where they're like, I'm done with everybody. I'm just looking out for me. Well, the empath typically grew up in a household that was similar. They could have went the narcissistic route, but they somehow, because they were able to keep their empathy, they didn't want to hurt people, so they went the other way. So they just learned how to survive and get through it, and read the energy in the room, and read their parents, and read their family dynamic, and they learned how to smooth in and smooth out. And that's why almost every empath I've ever met has a lot of trauma in their childhood, and most of them are codependents or ex-codependents. So it's kind of interesting. But the root trauma, the root petri dish, let's say, is similar. It's just one goes one way, one goes the other. And the only difference between an empath and a narcissist is the empath was able to hold on to their empathy and keep that connection to like their inner child. Other than that, they're pretty similar. Yeah. As far as, I went over it in the last podcast, but it's pretty interesting. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. Okay, so I got an email from Amy. She subscribes. She wanted me to let you guys know that the Sensitive movie came out. It's called Sensitives in Love, and I was supposed to tell you about it last month, but I forgot about it. And but that's out. So there's a new movie out for sensitive people. Dr. Elaine Aron put it out, and I think it's called Sensitives in Love. Hold on. Yeah, Sensitive in Love, the film. I'll put it up over here. So, inspired by the international bestseller, The Highly Sensitive Person. Wow, okay. Sensitive in Love. So anyway, look for that. I haven't seen it yet, but, it's pretty cool. Whatever puts HSP and sensitivity, on the map, makes it more high profile is always a good thing. So look for that. If anybody's seen it, put in the comments if it's good or not. All right, and I got a couple book recommendations for you peeps. The first one is The Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. And I promoted it in the last podcast, but I wanted to talk about it again because I actually read it this time. I read it twice. It gets into the cause of narcissism. It gets in the cause of codependency and sort of, how empaths are made. And he calls it self-love deficit syndrome. And because he says codependency is basically the lack of self-love, which I totally agree with. And so anyway, that's a good book. So if you've ever been with a narcissist or you have codependency, read Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. If you've attracted narcissists in your past, that's a really good book. I've given that book out to so many friends. I got a recommendation on borderline personality disorder book. It was by Mr. Tellygunner, and it's called In Sheep's Clothing by George Simon Jr. I haven't read it, but Mr. Tellygunner says it's good for borderline personality disorder information, that kind of thing. And then I got another book recommendation on cluster B personality disorders by Jill Gibbs. It's called Dodging Energy Vampires by Christine Northrup. And there's a chapter on cluster B personality disorders in there. So that's pretty cool. So read those. And then for the fellas, I have a book for you guys that I recommend. Okay, so in the Highly Sensitive Male podcast that I did, I talk about two books that I always recommend to the guys. The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi and No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. So I have another book, and this is for the guys. It's called Models by Mark Manson, and it is really good. And the title is kind of misleading. It's called Models, but it's not like how to date models. It's basically talking about new models for masculinity. And it's not a pickup artist book. It's not a book it's not a player handbook or anything like that, but it is probably the best book I've read on how to be a man, whatever that it means to you. But a lot of sensitive guys I've noticed, they grew up without dads or there was no male role models in their life to show them how to be like a masculine type dude, right? So like, what does that mean? Like a lot of people think being masculine is just like being a player, being disrespectful to women, being a bully. That's not what we're talking about. In fact, he's one of the things that Mark Manson says he says one of the keys to being a man is vulnerability. And he says when most men hear the word vulnerability, their immediate reaction is to associate it with weakness. I know I did. I still do sometimes, honestly. Well, until I read this book and I was like, oh, that makes sense. So he says, in general, men are raised to withhold their emotions, to not show weakness, and to ignore any hint of introspection. On top of that, most of the popular dating advice out there encourages guys to be aloof, standoffish, judgmental, and at times scathing towards women. And that's true. A lot of those books, I don't recommend any books like that on this podcast. Nothing I've ever recommended is disrespectful to women, but they're out there, those books, right? But like he gives practical examples of what vulnerability is. Like if he says, for instance, making yourself vulnerable doesn't just mean being willing to share your fears or insecurities. It can mean putting yourself in a position where you can be rejected, saying a joke that may not be funny, asserting an opinion that may offend others, joining a table of people that you don't know, or telling a woman that you like her and want to date her. All these things require you to stick your neck out on the line emotionally in some way. You're making yourself vulnerable when you do them. And that's true. Like a lot of guys with like that nice guy syndrome, they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't stand for anything. They don't take risks. And the final thing I want to say on this whole narcissism thing is if you're an INFP, INFJ, empath woman, just know that the narcissist is coming for you. This is an absolute fact. He's probably already there in your life. So what I suggest that you do is, like I said in the last podcast, just assume if you're an empath woman, just assume any guy coming into your life is probably a narcissist until proven otherwise. Make him prove he's not. And if you're already in a relationship, run your boyfriend through the narcissist test. Go out there and Google narcissist checklist and run him through it. Make sure he's not, because we can deceive ourselves. And like I said, 90% of the empaths I know have been with narcissists, are in relationship with narcissists right now because they're codependent. They want to help people, fix people. It's just the dynamic. The narcissist empath dynamic is a thing. So that's my final warning. I'll talk about more narcissist stuff, but I'm kind of burned out on that topic right now. Okay, so our main topic tonight is the question, are all HSPs and empaths demisexuals? It's a good question, right? Well, what's a demisexual? I didn't know either. I was like, what does that mean? Like you're into like Demi Lovato? That's like all you think about? Hey, these jokes are free, people. All right, don't expect much. So anyway, but that's not what it means. Let me pull up this list of different sexual orientations, right? Yeah, okay, so I'm old school, right? When I grew up, we just had heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual. I think that was it. We had like 3. Now we got a lot, right? We're micro-parsing sexual orientations. And at first you think like, well, this is kind of stupid, right? Like why? Everyone wants an identity. For my generation, Generation X, I know the millennials and lower are like, hell yeah, man, we all want our, our own specific label. Like they're definitely down into like micro-parsing everything. But I'm not opposed to it. I actually, I think it's a good thing. So why are we talking about this topic, right? Okay, I'll tell you why. Because I've talked about on this podcast a few times that I believe empaths and a lot of HSPs, INFPs, we're not one night stand type of people. We like to have an emotional connection before we have sex with people. And I didn't really know what that was and was I different? Is that a weird? Because a lot of my friends, my ESTJ, non-sensitive type friends, man, they have one night stands constantly. Like that's the thing, right? That's what they do. And they brag about it and it's cool and they got like crazy numbers. And I'm like, wow, that's not really me. Like, I have no desire to do that. I've tried to do it and it's so boring. It's boring. I find it super boring to go out and try to pick up women all the time. Like, good God, I'd rather like read a book. It's like, I don't have the energy for that because I'm an introvert, right? That's expending energy. Plus, I've gone to strip clubs. I'm not a strip club guy, but there's a friend of mine that every time his wife goes out of town, he always calls me up and wants to go to the strip club, but he pays for everything. I get the call. He only calls me. I know when he calls me, it's like, oh, it's strip club time. So I'll go with them. He pays for everything. He drops thousands of dollars. It's insane. But I go to the strip club, and it's cool. It's like, yeah, the women are beautiful. But as my personality, but I always get bored like after an hour. Dude, I want to stay there all night. I'm like, dude, can we go? Because I don't have any emotional connection to these women. Like, it's just physical beauty, but they're just doing a job. It's like, okay, nice job. I'm impressed with your pole skills, but I want to go home and go to sleep. This guy, he wants to go on. Anyway, my point is, we're having a different reaction to sex and sexuality. It's like, man, but I've tried to be. I'm like, why am I not like this guy? I would think like, oh, that's what a normal guy is like, right? Strip clubs, one night stands. Yeah, I don't think we're all like that. I think a lot of us are demisexuals. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so I got this list of genders. Some of them are kind of cool. So we got the pansexual, right? Pansexual is gender blind sexual attraction to all people. Okay, that's definitely not me. But I have a friend who's pansexual. He even has the pansexual tattoo. I'm like, man, I don't know, whatever. But he's a millennial. So I'm like, okay, you millennials with all your crazy genders and orientations, but now I'm starting to get it now. So the next one we have, here, let me pull this up. The next one we have is Omni Sexual. That's similar to a pansexual, but actively attracted to all genders rather than gender blind. I don't know. Omnisexual sounds like pansexual to me. I don't see the difference. Okay, a gynosexual is someone who's attracted to women. Demisexual, that's someone who is sexually attracted to someone based on a strong emotional connection. That's what I think I am and a lot of empaths are. But let's go through a few of these other ones. Sapiosexual, that's someone that is sexually attracted to intelligence. See, I actually have some of that. I would say I'm in the sapiosexual category a little bit, but more demi than sapio for sure. Here, how about this one? Objectum sexual, sexual attraction to inanimate objects. What the? Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Hey man, we don't judge. We don't judge. What could that be? Sexual attraction to inanimate objects. Like what? Trying to think. Like a mannequin or something? I don't even know. I wonder what that could be. I definitely don't have that. Here's one. Autosexual. Someone who prefers masturbation to sexual activity with others. I think we've all been here. I think we've all been autosexual. At one time in our life, probably many times. I think this one's just like, a given, right? Who hasn't been autosexual? I'm gonna skip some of these. Asexual, someone who doesn't experience sexual attraction. That's interesting. Just no sexual attraction. If you're asexual, put in the comments what that's like. That's interesting. And then there's a gray sexual, occasionally experience sexual attraction, but usually not. So anyway, those are kind of fun. You probably recognize yourself in some of those. But we're gonna talk about demisexual tonight because that is the one I want to focus on. Let me pull this up. So I have this article from bestlife.com about demisexuals, and it's 15 signs you identify as a demisexual. So I thought this would be pretty cool. Like I said, I've noticed that a lot of empaths and HSPs, we just are not really into that one night stand hookup culture. And I think this is why. I'm going to read these signs and see if you agree with some of these. So one of the important things to point out about being a demisexual is if you identify as demisexual, it is extremely difficult to feel attracted to someone without being friends first. And while the experience is different for everyone, in today's day and age, it can sometimes make finding someone all that more challenging. And that's been my experience. There's usually what happens to me is someone will be attractive. I'll start talking to them. I always want to get to know them more. I don't want to sleep with them right away. As a demisexual, I think like, that'll come later. I can wait months before I sleep with somebody. I want to build that emotional connection. That's what creates the sexual interest. All right, so let's get into the signs of demisexuality, okay? So number 1, demisexual people usually aren't big fans of physical touch. So it says, making out, grinding on the dance floor, even extended hugs are a turnoff to you. Physical intimacy, even with someone you've gotten to know, can be uncomfortable and make you feel a bit anxious. I could say yes to all that. You'd rather have a conversation or get to know someone personally rather than fill them up. Sometimes you find these feelings overwhelming and unbearable. Yeah, I've never been a grinder on the dance floor. I remember I was at a dance one time and it was I think it was a Halloween dance. And, I was out on the dance floor doing my thing. I just danced like, my dance moves or whatever, they're pretty standard. They're definitely not like freaky, grindy. And this girl was dancing in front of me and she like turned around, she like turned around and like backed up on it. Like she like started like backing up on me, started grinding on me. Like I was like, what do I do with this? Like, I don't even know you. It was funny, man. But I was like, that's not my thing, but that's, I'm atypical. I'm demisexual. So I was like, I don't want to grind on you. I don't want to grind on randos. I don't even know you. That was funny, man. But I was just like, what do I do? Back up off me, man. It was hilarious. Yeah, extended hugs turn me off. I had a friend that used to like to live. She used to like to give 20-second hugs, and I'd be like, no thanks. But people get offended. But I don't want to hug you for 20 seconds. I'm sorry, unless you're my girlfriend or something. That's different because then we have an emotional connection. Yeah. Okay. So number 2, demisexual people might grow up feeling different. Yes. That's me. Long before you ever wondered what is demisexual, you probably felt your sex life was different than other people's. Since your teen years or even earlier, you've been aware that you didn't quite fit in with what everyone else seemed interested in. Felt alienated when your friends talked about how sexy someone was or described their dating lives and sexual exploits. You feel like you might be missing something or that there was something deeply wrong with you. Yeah, I can say yes to all that, except the whole thing about finding somebody sexy, the thing is, as a demisexual, you can look at somebody and be like, oh man, that person's sexy, they're hot. But making the jump to being intimate with them, that's the jump. Like that's the part where the emotional connection needs to be. So I don't know if I agree with, like, as a demisexual, you still find people sexy and like, but I would listen, but it's true. Like I would listen to my friends like, oh man, like every weekend they were with somebody new and I'd be like, I didn't really do anything this weekend. And I always felt like, what the hell, these guys, I don't know. Like they were on a mission. Anyway, not judging. I just never could really relate. So number 3, emotional bonds are extremely important to you. Trust, openness, and emotional connection are what really gets you going. Yeah, that's for sure. You feel a high when you experience emotional intimacy with another person and sharing personal stories. Yeah, that's definitely INFP, HSP, empath vibe for sure. Where other people might feel a thrill after sleeping with someone else, you feel a jolt of satisfaction after a night of great personal conversation. That's true. I'm not going to lie. I love a good conversation. Yeah. Because it's that I love when somebody shares their secrets with me, their intimate thoughts, to me, that's super hot. When someone starts taking off the armor and being real with you, man, I'll take that. The sex can wait. Like that to me is like, go on, tell me more. Yeah, it's like that trust building, that vibe. Yeah, that's interesting. So number 4, demisexual people do enjoy sex, but only under specific circumstances. Unlike asexuals who are repulsed by sex, demisexuals actually enjoy it when very specific conditions are met. Specifically, you need to feel a strong emotional bond with someone before you could imagine enjoying getting naked with them. Yeah, that's true. For me, you would feel exposed and uncomfortable rather than aroused if thrown together with another person you didn't feel a strong emotional connection with. That is so true. Like if you just get naked with someone you don't know that well, to me, I got all like anxious and like, no, it's not my thing. But I don't know if that's the way I was raised, probably. But it's not a shame thing. It's like, and it's an acceptance thing. Like if I know somebody, if I had that emotional connection with somebody and I trust them, it's easier. It's way less anxiety. It's almost the opposite of like a narcissist, where a narcissist, they'll sleep with anybody with zero emotional connection. It's pretty much like a demisexual is the opposite, I think, of like your promiscuous narcissist type. But it's not immoral. I don't believe it's a morality thing. I think it's more of just a connection thing. Yeah. Number 5, demisexuals are often dubbed prudes. Friends who don't really understand demisexual people will give you a bad time about your tendency to show little interest in getting laid and your ability to flirt with and end up labeling you a prude or something similar. You've tried to explain that you just aren't interested in sex with randos, but it's a foreign concept to them and they assume you're just nervous about sex. Yeah, I don't know. I think people think I have more sex than I do, just the way I am around women, and I'm pretty confident. I get attention. I just don't close the deal. I'm not a closer. I don't want to put in, it's like too much work for me. Plus, I'm not trying to get herpes from randos. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather just be monogamous with one person that I know really well. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, people, when I was younger, friends used to like mess with me about it. Yeah. So number 6, demisexual people long for a relationship, but not necessarily physical touch. So basically what that means is it's not that you aren't attracted to others or interested in romantic relationships. And while you might get aroused by physical touch, you won't be fully turned on by the physicality alone. That emotional part is integral to feeling the true sense of connection and desire. So number 7, you're not alone. So basically they're just saying there's other demisexual people out there, which I think that's true. I think there's a lot of demisexuals that are listening to me right now. Number 8, demisexual people do not get the hookup culture. You feel out of step with the modern hookup culture, while your friends feel a night out is not complete without a makeout session at the bar, or at least getting a phone number with potential future for fun. You'd be perfectly happy just chilling in a quiet corner and chatting with friends or getting to know a quirky stranger with no interest in having anything progressing beyond a handshake. Yep, I totally agree with that. I do not understand hookup culture. I've tried to run in that lane, and it is just not my scene at all. Yeah, I don't get it. It's a different frequency, 100%. Not judging it. Hook up all day, every day. I don't care. I have no interest. I'm not going to, I have no interest in that scene at all. All right, number 9, demisexual people don't feel the need to act on their arousal the way heterosexual people might. So someone who is someone who is demisexual often feels baffled by how horny the rest of the world seems to be. It can seem nuts the way people will blow up their relationships or spend huge sums of money on and vast amounts of time to try and get laid. You just don't feel that sort of drive for sex. That's true. That's like it's too much. I don't want to expend the effort just to try to get laid with some rando. That's like the strip club thing. Like my friend, man, he has no problem spending thousands of dollars at the strip club. To me, it's a total waste of money. I'm like, if he didn't pay for it, I wouldn't go. I'd rather just stay home and watch TV, read a book or something. But anyway, yeah, so it does baffle me. All right, number 10, demisexual people are sexually self-sufficient. I think we all know what that means. Most of your moments of sexual gratification come from masturbation. When it comes to physical pleasure, you don't see the necessity of another person. That's probably true. I don't know. I think sex with a person is better than solo action myself, but, I get what they're trying to say here. I'm going to skip some of these. Let's go to number 12. For you, sex is about connecting. It says here, when you do have sex with someone else, it's in pursuit of a deeper emotional bond. Physical touch serves as a method for connecting and getting to better understand and appreciate your partner, bringing them satisfaction and pleasure. I agree with this. For me, like, sex is definitely about connecting. 100%. I think a lot of people listening to me probably feel that way. Yeah. That's the thing. I think we have better sex, I think, as empaths and sensitive people. I think we do. I don't know. I don't really think that shallow one-night stand sex, I call it shallow. I just don't think those people that participate in that behavior are just really being that fulfilled. And there's nothing wrong with it, but, I don't know. It's like, I'm not jealous. I think like, okay, well, when my friends get laid, I always think like, dude, look at all the work. Like my friend, dude, he's on Tinder. Then he's got to go out, or she's got to come to his house. They hook up. They got to make small talk. I don't know, man. That's like, dude, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of wasted time. I don't know. That's just a lot of work. All right, 13. Demisexual people don't get flirting. It says your friends love having meaningless conversations with strangers at the bar or through Tinder. Cracking jokes or going off on elaborate, goofy tangents about nothing. It says friends will often have to point out to you after the fact that someone was flirting with you and you had no idea in the moment. It's a language you just don't speak. Oh, dude, that's the story of my life. I can't tell you how many times I was talking to a woman and my friends would be like, dude, she was so into you. I'm like, she was? I had no idea. That was kind of when I was younger. Now I can spot indicators of interest a lot better. But when I was young, I would just talk to women like, I had no idea they were flirting with me. I was like clueless. I just never got it. I never understood the flirt game. I still really don't, but I can sort of, I'll flirt a little bit just to let the person know, just to let the woman know, hey, like I'm kind of into you. But that's it. Like I'm not doing it all night with a bunch of randos. I think flirting has a place in the demisexual life and in our scene, because you got to let somebody know that you like them. So usually flirting is the way to do it, but it's not over the top flirting. It's just like, okay, whatever. Number 14, demisexual people tend to date friends. You've heard so many dating gurus warn against falling into the friend zone, but that's your favorite place to be. The only serious relationships you've had begun as platonic friendships, where you'd gotten to know another person deeply before it unexpectedly progressed to something romantic. If the same friend had hit on you in a bar, there's no way it would have gone anywhere. But a few months of hanging out as friends and learning what really makes them tick, game on. That's 100% true for me. I'm always friends with women first. Totally. I'll take months to get to know them. Because I'm cool with just being friends. I don't have to be in a relationship. Relationships are great, but there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of drama in relationships that you don't have in just friend mode. When I'm just friends with women, there's no conflict. There's no drama. Relationships, different story. Relationships is a lot of work. All right, and last one. Demisexual people have sexual fantasies or enjoy erotic fiction. Demisexuals may have very active sexual fantasy lives, whether enjoying erotic stories, watching porn, or creating their own mental fantasies. The difference is that it's not just the physical act of sex that turns them on, but the whole context of the person they imagine having sex with. There's a major emotional component to these fantasies that give them an extra charge for the demisexual person. Yeah, I can see how this could be true. I think as INFPs types, we have a fantasy life, we have a rich inner thought life, we definitely could probably cook up some pretty sweet fantasies. That's probably pretty true. Okay, so what do y'all think? Are all HSPs and empaths demisexuals? Probably not. But I think most are. I know I am. I would definitely put myself in this category. When I learned about this demisexual thing, I was like, oh man, that's me. I didn't even know there was a name for my, I guess you'd call it a sexual orientation or a sexual category. And I was pretty happy. I was like, cool, I'm not alone. So I was joking earlier about micro-parsing sexual orientations, but there's a purpose to these categories because it helps people understand themselves better. And when you understand that you're not alone, it makes you feel not so different. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this topic tonight, because I think a lot of highly sensitive people aren't into hookup culture, and they probably think like, what's wrong with me? Especially a lot of the guys, I know for myself. So, there's nothing wrong with us. We are highly sensitive people. We crave emotional connection, and there's nothing wrong with that. So you might be demisexual. In fact, I am taking a poll. So in the show notes of the podcast and the YouTube channel, I have put a survey. Please go take it. I want to see, based on MBTI type and a few other things, if you're a demisexual. I really want to quantify this and figure out, I'm trying to get a feel for our community if we're mostly demisexual. I think we are, but who knows? So yeah, please go click on that link and take the survey. So on this demisexual topic, I have to tell you guys, so I met somebody recently. We actually are in a relationship now, and it's a demisexual relationship because she lives 3,000 miles away. We talk every night on the phone, and our emotional connection is super strong. And she's actually going to fly out to California in a couple months. And I'm going to try to have her on the podcast because she has a degree in clinical psychology and a master's in clinical social work. And she is a practicing psychotherapist. She is super smart. One of the most sensitive, high-level empaths I've ever met. It's funny. I always talk about on here, like, man, I wish I had a therapist, So, of course, I would get a girlfriend that's also a therapist. So, the universe has a sense of humor. So, yeah, like I said, I will try to have her on the podcast because she has a lot to offer the HSP community. I want you guys to meet her soon. Hopefully we can do that. But yeah, she's super cool. But the thing is, as a demisexual, I can do that long distance relationship. We can have that emotional connection. I mean, you can't do it forever. You eventually got to get together, but it's different because it's such a mental thing for us, So I don't know, you guys, let me know if you've been in any long-term relationships as demisexuals, how it worked out for you. I like it. I think it's cool. I have no problem. I'm kind of digging it, I'm so picky that for me, having somebody I'm in a relationship with being so far away, it's not ideal, but I'm cool with it because I never thought I'd ever be in another relationship ever again, honestly. So yeah. She's pretty cool. I can't tell you too much about her because I'm not sure how much she wants me to share because she's actually a legit therapist. I don't know if she wants to be associated with this podcast too much. Yeah, I can ask her anything. So she's already, in fact, that book, the Human Magnet Syndrome, she's the one that told me about it and recommended it. Everything that she's recommended to me is really high quality. She vets everything. So yeah, she's a good kind of behind the scenes resource for helping me bounce ideas off her and stuff. So yeah, she's super cool though, man. She's one of the funniest people I ever met. She's INFP, empath. Yeah, I've never been in a relationship with another INFP. So that's interesting. 2 INFPs in a relationship. It's pretty trippy. I got to tell you. I'll tell you about it. Maybe I'll have her on and we'll do a INFP relationship podcast, Q&A or something. Cause we're very similar. And it's been super good relationship, but being 2 INFPs, we can get in our head about certain things, make movies, make assumptions. So yeah, a lot of communication, but it's cool. It's all good. She's cool. So that's pretty much it for this podcast. I really wanted to talk about this topic because I thought it was interesting. I like to put names to behaviors if I can. As an INFP, I like to categorize things. That's why I like the DSM, and I should have been probably a psychologist, but I like to label stuff. I like to categorize things. And, there's gray areas, but so anyway, demisexuality is a thing. Hopefully you identified with it. If not, cool. Yeah, take the poll. Please, if you're listening on the podcast, go rate the podcast. Please go give me a good rating if you like this podcast, if you can relate to anything I'm talking about here. And always the YouTubers, subscribe, send comments, email me, go to hspexperience.com. There's a form there. And yeah, I mean, I hope you guys are doing good. Spring's coming, not too long. This winter has been so cold and dark. Even in California, I'm like tired of it. I want to go swimming. I'm done with the winter. Anyway, you guys, it's good to get another podcast out. Hope everyone's well. Until next time, peace.